Hello, students. Welcome to General Psychology. I'm Professor Riches, and this is just a little introduction to Canvas and the course at large. I'll give you a little bit of introduction to me when you watch your lecture video for the first week. So to get started, this is General Psychology. Please download the syllabus. There's a couple places to do that in the Canvas course, but it looks like this. It has some important information depending on the quarter. It's going to look a little bit different than this, but one of the big things, I do want you to read this whole document, but one of the big things to pay attention to and maybe even print out so you can keep track of it and have a quick reference is the schedule. The schedule is at the end of the syllabus. Again, yours might look a little bit different depending on which quarter this is. As I'm recording this, this one is correct. So it tells you for the week, what is the topic of the week, or what are the things that we're going to be covering. So week 1, introduction to psychology, week 2, psychological research, but also we will introduce the question paper in week 2. And then it'll tell you the kind of assignments that you'll have to do that week. For specific due dates, look at Canvas for what the specific due dates are. Usually things are due on Saturday night, so like 11:59 p.m. For the discussion board, though, the first post is due Wednesday night, and then the follow-up posts are due Saturday night. So do keep track of that on Canvas. The discussion boards are scheduled to state that they are due Wednesday night, so it's kind of tracking your first post, and then the follow-up posts, it doesn't really give me a double due date for those. So just know first post due Wednesday, second post due Saturday. But here is a good schedule so you can keep track of things. So again, find your own syllabus for your class. Jumping to Canvas now. So here is our Canvas course. Again, depending on the quarter, yours might look a little bit different, but generally you'll have a couple things that you can get to. Modules is here, modules is here, and modules is here. Essentially, modules is the main thing to click on for this class. When you first come to the class, obviously clicking on syllabus, downloading that is important. And also you might want to get to the gradebook. So you've got a couple handy buttons to go and check your grades, to double check the syllabus, but most often, this is why it's here a couple times, I want you to look at the modules. The modules is essentially where everything is. This first section, if you've never taken a course at Olympic College, Module 0 is part of essentially every single Canvas course. It's got a bunch of tutorials for students, how to use Canvas, how to get around and use student services. Different policies are listed here. So this is really good, especially if this is your first quarter. Go through all of these things. If you've been here a couple quarters already, you probably don't need these unless you're like, oh, I don't remember something about some student services. Then maybe come and check here, or you can also just search for it on the internet. Another big important thing is your textbook. There is a link here to your textbook. Our textbook is an OER textbook. That means Open Educational Resources. It is free. You can download it. You can, at least you could get a printed copy in the bookstore. I know there's some changes happening to the bookstore right now, so I'm not positive if you can get a printed copy, but go ask them, see if they can, if that is something you want, but you can download it in EPUB PDF. Here is a link to our Zoom office hours. Again, depending on the quarter, the time for those office hours might be different, but you will find a link in Canvas to those. Another important thing that you'll use quite a few times in the class is the question paper resources. The question paper is basically the research paper that we're going to do in the class. It's essentially step by step over the course of the quarter. You'll pick a topic and you'll create a reference list. You'll then read your resources, your research papers that you download and you find through some library resources. Then we'll create an outline, then we'll create a first draft, and then you will create a final draft after doing a peer review. So we'll get into that as the weeks go on. Don't worry about that week 1. We'll really jump into that in week 2. So now on to week 1. Most of the time, and I'll actually open this and the syllabus at the same time. For most weeks, we have a pretty standard set of assignments that you'll do kind of every single week. For week 1, it's a little bit different because I do want you to read the syllabus and then take a syllabus orientation quiz. But for most weeks, you'll start with the instructions for the week. It'll tell you, hey, don't forget to do this chapter, this assignment, discussion boards due this day, that kind of thing. But usually what I'll have you do is start with readings. So start the class with readings. If you're looking ahead on the schedule, you can even know what chapter we're going to be reading for that week. So you can go ahead and do be sure to check this, because you'll see we go from chapter 1, 2 to 3, we jump to 6, we jump to 8, 9, 10, but then we jump to 12, 14, and then 15 and 16. So double check your schedule. I will list it in the instructions, but if you want to start reading ahead, that would be a good thing to do. Usually I will have just the week open and then maybe the next week a little bit early. Maybe I'll click the button early and you'll get 2 weeks at a time early, but generally just the week that we're on will be open to you. But you can always read ahead. So you'll read those instructions. You'll do a weekly reading. So here, this also lists here syllabus quiz. So you see syllabus quiz. Then you'll have a weekly reading, and then the quizzes are over the weekly reading. So just over the chapter, they're just the multiple choice questions from that chapter. You'll do all those questions through Canvas. You see chapter readings for week 1, and then a chapter quiz. So do that chapter quiz, 10 points, 5 multiple choice questions. Then you have the lecture slides. You can download those lecture slides, take notes on them, review them, and then while you are doing that, watch the lecture video. So that is here. Then you'll have the discussion board for the week, and that's kind of the pattern I would like you to take. I also have it listed in the syllabus, kind of in the order I think you should do it in. Do the reading, do the chapter quiz, do the lecture recording, or view the lecture recording, and then hopefully you've done those things before by Wednesday. So you're doing your first discussion board post on Wednesday night. Then you have some additional weekly activities. So to dive into a little more depth on one or more of those topics, you've got an activity, and then some of the weeks you'll have an assignment for a question paper, and then in later weeks we will have a midterm and a final exam. So you basically go along in order. I'll kind of give you a sense of what this looks like in Canvas here. So let's jump open to instructions. Again, things might look a little bit different depending on your quarter, and because it doesn't always show me exactly what students see, but you can read your instructions, see what's going on, click this little next button, and you can kind of continue on. This is your textbook to download. It says a reading assignment, read this chapter, click next. It's not going to let me click next through the chapter quiz, so I'm going to have to go back really quick. But for you, it would click through after you do the chapter quiz. A next button should pop up. Otherwise, you can just click on modules like I just did, come back and find, all right, I just did the chapter quiz. What do I do now? Week 1 lecture slides, and continue on. So you can download those slides. Next thing, after you've downloaded the slides, do watch the lecture video. For those lecture videos, I do want to have a little bit of proof that you've done them. So it's a small 5-point assignment. Essentially, as you're watching that lecture video, take a screenshot or two, and then you upload that screenshot or two as the assignment. There's some instructions here for how to submit a screenshot. And then with that, the discussion board, after you've done your reading, after you've watched the lecture, hopefully you'll have a lot of information to apply to the discussion board for the week. Week 1 is an introduction post, introduce people to yourself, so it's not super related to the content, but other weeks will be a lot more related to the content. All right, after that discussion board and on that first post on Wednesday, go on to your weekly activity. These are things that dive a little bit more in depth for one or more of the topics of the week. So for this first week, a little bit more on positive psychology, and then also a little bit more about what are you hoping to get out of this class. It's a little easier for week 1, partially for anyone who's a little bit late coming into the class. This will be pretty quick and easy to do. I do want to give you an example of what it'll look like in week 2, though. So let's jump back to those modules. So week 2, when we get there, it's pretty similar, but week 2, you will have, again, week 2 instructions. You have some reading, download the lecture slides. The video should actually be up here. I'll move it in just a second. But after your reading, do your quiz. And then, yeah, the quiz should be up here. So do your reading, do your quiz, lecture slides, video, and then I'll introduce the question paper assignment. So again, that is a research paper and I'll talk a lot more about that. There will be a video in a lot more detail, but it's basically a total of a minimum of 4-page research paper. So there'll be a title page, there'll be a minimum of 2 pages of written content in APA format, and a reference page. And we will learn in week 2 how to find research, and you will have at least 2 peer-reviewed sources for your research paper, and then a third source can also be peer-reviewed or otherwise. But again, more detail in week 2. So a better example of a weekly activity is week 2's weekly activity. Here it gives you instructions. Hey, check out this topic or this topic. Look into these websites, do a little bit of reading, do a little bit of screenshotting of which one you explored, and then follow these instructions to give me a short paragraph in this case about what you learned. Week 2 is about research methods in psychology. So which of these topics did you look at? Research samples? Did you look at independent and dependent variables? And what did you learn? So again, you have your instructions, you have your chapter reading, you have your chapter quiz every week, you have your discussion board that is due on Wednesday, you have a lecture video to watch, you have an additional activity. Sometimes you will have a question paper assignment, and you can again check your syllabus for when those are coming. I've put the question paper assignments in bold. Yeah, that's essentially how the class goes. That's kind of how to navigate Canvas. One of the main areas to be aware of is that modules. So pay attention to the modules. Things should be coming up on your Canvas calendar telling you that they are to do. I'll give you a sense of what that looks like on this home page. So it should be coming up on the to-do list, but the best thing to do is just click on modules and go one by one through the things for that week. They're separated into weeks. We've got week 1, week 2, week 3, so on and so forth. So go through the modules step by step. At the end, after you've completed things for that module, after you've clicked all the next buttons, you will see this little congratulations, assuming it loads, a little green check mark that says, good job, you finished the module. For any given assignment, there should also be rubrics. So you can double check those for any given assignment. So for the weekly activity, here's the rubric. For the question paper assignments, those rubrics will be a little more important. All right, so if you already knew how to use Canvas, much of this spiel was probably pretty useless for you, but hopefully you feel a little more confident, a little more comfortable in getting into Canvas. Again, the modules, they are probably the most useful thing for you. Use modules rather than just relying on the calendar. It's possible that sometimes you miss things depending on how it's pushing things to you in your calendar. So again, welcome to class. This is General Psychology, and I'm excited to share a lot of the knowledge I have with you.